Good morning, friends. This episode is a continuation of our previous episode 4, our favorite viewpoints at the Grand Canyon, one day at the Grand Canyon. This continuation is all about hiking, so sit back and enjoy the fun. All right, so now that we've kind of given you an overview of all of the viewpoints that we recommend, and again, check out the various viewpoints that we didn't mention along the way if they pique your interest. But now we want to talk about some of the hiking trails, and we're going to work our way from west to east. And James knows a lot more about some of these trails than I do, so I'm going to go ahead and have him start with what he knows about the Hermits Trail.
Right at that top of the trailhead, there is actually going to be a trail map that's going to show you Hermits Rest Trail in detail. It's a very quick trail to the river. When you get behind the Hermits Rest building where the gift shop is and where they sell food, and you walk behind there and you come to the trailhead, they're going to have the map there. And it's going to explain to you that it's a very difficult trail. You come to a couple different springs, but that trail is not maintained. You're not going to see other people on that trail. People are few and far between. That is an expert hiking trail. Very, very thin trail. It's washed out in areas. And some of the trail, you don't even know which way to go in some of the spots. So if you're going to go down this particular trail, you do want to seek advice from a ranger, and you always should go to the backcountry office and just tell them, hey, I'm going to hike down Hermits Rest Trail. No water, no bathrooms on this trail. So it is an expert hiking trail only. Never hike it alone. Always have a partner, and always give somebody your itinerary if you're going to hike down these difficult trails in the Grand Canyon. Hiking in the Grand Canyon can be spectacular, beautiful. You're going to see some of the backcountry that people don't see, but can be extremely dangerous. So that's what I know about Hermits Trail. You can get a lot of information on the map at the top of the trailhead. And if you do want to do it, if you just get the hiking map of the Grand Canyon, they're not going to give you the information for Hermits Trail. You have to go to the back office country and you got to ask them for it. When you get down in there, there's some lefts that you can take and some rights that just go. Tonto Trail is one of those trails that meet up with it. If you get on Tonto Trail and you don't know what you're doing, you could get lost down in the Grand Canyon. So you really want to make sure you're staying on the right path, and you do want to tell somebody you're going down there.
You should really already have experience in the canyon on one of the more traveled trails if you're going to take Hermits Trail, but it's there for you. It is a trail in the canyon. We've heard a lot of beautiful and positive things about it, but I don't think it can be driven home enough how dangerous this canyon can be, especially when you're on some of these less maintained trails. So the next major trail coming towards the east is the Bright Angel Trail. This is probably the most hiked trail. I know it's the most hiked trail in the Grand Canyon. It is probably the most hiked trail in the United States. And a lot of people don't go very far down in. It is probably the easiest trail in the canyon, but it is by no means easy. You change 5,000 feet in elevation over the course of 9.5 miles. So it's a tough trail. Going down, of course, feels much easier than going up. Gets hotter as you go down. In this dry desert air, you won't notice that you're sweating, so you don't realize you're getting dehydrated. You want to make sure that you're drinking lots of water. You have lots of salty snacks, that you're taking electrolytes. Now, this trail is maintained by the Grand Canyon Conservancy. So typically, the first bit of the trail is quite a bit easier. The deeper you go into the canyon, of course, the more difficult it is to maintain the trail. So it does become more difficult. The mules that take riders down into the canyon and bring supplies down to Phantom Ranch also take this trail. So they beat it up pretty good. You're going to have mule poop on the trail. But this trail also has water. It is the only trail that gets you down to the bottom of the canyon that has water stations. The 1.5 mile house, I feel like, is a pretty good stopping point. Go down to the canyon of the 1.5 mile house, get some shade, get some water, hit the restrooms, and then come back out. That first half of a mile after, when you're coming back up after going to the water house, the 1.5 mile rest house, is probably one of the toughest half miles in the canyon. So it really gives you a taste at what the steepness of this canyon can do to kick your booty. But they've got water at the 1.5 mile mark, 3 mile mark, then at Havasupai Garden Campground. So that's a campground down inside the canyon. If you want to do camping in the canyon, we do not recommend doing a rim to river and back in one day. So even though the Bright Angel Trail is the easier trail, it's 9 miles to Phantom Ranch. So doing the rim to river or even going to Phantom Ranch and back in one day is a big feat when it can be well over 100 degrees at the bottom of this canyon. So we strongly recommend trying to camp in the canyon. Our biggest recommendation for that is to hit the backcountry offices when you first arrive and get on their wait list for the time that you're going to be there for campsites. A lot of the time people cancel right before their trip, and you're able to, at the last second, if you couldn't reserve a campsite ahead of time, at the last second, you could slide in on somebody's cancellation. So if you want to hike the Grand Canyon, you want to camp down in there, you couldn't get the reservations that you wanted, don't give up. Go to the backcountry offices, plan your trip, follow through with it anyways, cross your fingers, hopefully somebody cancels. When we had heard that was possible, and when James tried it, immediately was able to grab a reservation. He had no problem at all getting it at Havasupai Garden. So Havasupai Garden is kind of the halfway mark on the Bright Angel Trail. From there, the trail goes off into two directions. The fork to the left will take you to Plateau Point, which is literally just a view on the tip of the plateau looking down at the Colorado River. I've heard that it's the best spot in the park for both sunrise or sunset. But if you take the fork to the right, it's going to walk you through the cottonwood trees. You're going to have a creek running along the left side, and that continues to wind you all the way down to the Colorado River, where you jump on the river trail, and you can either take the Silver Bridge or continue walking along the trail and jump on that black suspension bridge to cross the Colorado River and get you to Phantom Ranch.
And Bright Angel Camper.
Bright Angel Campground, absolutely. Yep. And Phantom Ranch, I will tell you what, I have heard many, many, many wonderful things about the lemonade at Phantom Ranch. I didn't have the lemonade, but I will probably tell you it is the best beer I've ever had. Did you get anything else to add about Bright Angel, babe?
Bright Angel Trail is the most popular trail. You can bring kids down it. You'll see kids down in it. I do suggest, if you're just an average walker, a lot of people I walk a mile, 2 miles a day. If you just go to the 1.5 mile house and then turn around and come back up, that's going to take you 2-3 hours if you haven't practiced it or anything. So if you're going to take a feat and go down to Supai Gardens, that's 4.5 miles down and up. It's a great spot for lunch if you leave early. But you should go, if you're there a few days, go to the 1.5 mile house and come back up. As soon as you start hiking down the trail, you're going to go through a tunnel. It's like a 1/2 mile down. On the left-hand side, you'll see some pictographs up on the wall. And they're just like Native American art up on their walls. After Supai Gardens, that is where it gets hot. Below there and to the river is where you're going to have the most heat. So when you come in and you're planning your day up, it's going to be the same thing. You leave early in the morning. You're like, oh, I made it to the river by 11 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock in the morning. Well, then you got to come up through the heat of the day, up through the corkscrew where there is no water, there is no shade. So keep that in mind. It is a great hike. I like hiking on Bright Angel Trail. I like to hike it in the early spring, and I like to hike it in the fall. I personally don't do too much hiking in the Grand Canyon in the summer. I do know that that's the only time people can come, so they're coming. Just be aware that it is dangerous, very dangerous to hike in the summer. But I recommend a 1.5 miles back pretty much any time. It's going to give you the feel of hiking the Grand Canyon. Mm-hmm. And you can tell people you hiked the Grand Canyon. Mm-hmm. They don't have to know you didn't go to the river and back. Mm-hmm. You just hiked the Grand Canyon. That's still 3 miles, and it's 3 difficult miles down and up.
Yeah, absolutely.
And don't feed the squirrels.
Don't feed the squirrels. The squirrels are considered the most dangerous animal in the national park because they beg for food, and people think it's cute and funny to feed them to get in a pose for a picture, and then they bite. All right, so the second most popular trail, and the next one heading east, is the Kaibab Trail. This is Park Service trail. It was built by the Park Service, and it is maintained by the Park Service. There are rangers hiking consistently, not only up Kaibab, but also Bright Angel. So if you do run into issues or any kind of emergencies, there is likely to be a park ranger that you'll run into. If not, it's highly trafficked enough that somebody will find you. Now, the Kaibab Trail is kind of difficult to get to because you can't drive to the trailhead. The parking in the area, there just isn't enough of it. There's two options. The easiest one, in my opinion, because there's an abundance of parking here, is to park at the visitor center. I know we told you earlier to avoid the visitor center, but to park at the visitor center and then jump on the orange route for the Kaibab Trailhead. Otherwise, if you want to park a little closer, you can park at Pipe Creek Vista. So this is after you make the turn, getting on that Desert View Drive. You'll see that there's a viewpoint with parallel parking. And at the very beginning of that viewpoint, there's a bus stop. So park it in the parallel parking there, especially if you're doing it in the morning. We strongly recommend starting any hikes down into the canyon in the morning. Again, they say every 1,000 feet in elevation, it can be about 5.5 degrees warmer, and it varies from season to season. But we strongly recommend starting your hikes in the morning so you're doing the best you can to beat the heat of the day. So if you're starting in the morning, you should probably easily be able to find parking along Pipe Creek Vista, wait for that shuttle bus, and they'll take you right out to that trailhead. There is a restroom there, a vault toilet, and a water bottle filling station so you can fill up your Camelback and then head down in. Now, this trail is a very steep trail. So it gets you down very quickly. It takes you the same distance as the Bright Angel Trail, but it does it in only 7.5 miles. So it is climbing in some areas. It is a very steep grade. In other areas, it's going to be steep stairs. There's a lot of where you're just kind of on the side of a cliff. So if you're super anxious about heights, this one's a little bit more nerve-wracking. And then the mules also travel this trail. So you always want to follow the mule guide's instructions, whether typically to pull off against the side of the wall and just wait for the mule train to pass you. Don't mess with the mules. You've got several main viewpoints. You have the Aah Point, which is a great spot if you just, again, want to get a little taste of the canyon. Aah Point is a mile into the canyon. You go out to the main point and you can see so far to the east and west. It's breathtaking. James and I, a lot of the time, will just go down there with a lunch, quick hike, and come back out. That last, especially quarter mile of this trail is really, really steep switchback. So again, gets you a great taste of what it is like to hike this canyon. But beyond that, I think it's Cedar Ridge. And then you got Skeleton Point. And then the tip off, which is where there's two ramadas, one for the mules to rest and one for the people to rest. That is pretty much the only guaranteed shade on the Kaibab Trail. You'll note, especially once you start walking on the trail beyond Aah Point, you see that this rock formation just jets straight out into the center of the canyon. There are no cliff walls to give you any break from the sun for the rest of the trail. There is no water on this trail, so you must pack in all of the water you need until you get to Phantom Ranch, and that's if there is water available. We strongly recommend before you start on any hikes into the canyon, always check the NPS website on what is available, because things do change rapidly depending on weather conditions, pipeline breaks, and things of that nature. Got anything else to add on Kaibab?
I will tell you, if I was going to hike down into the Grand Canyon, and I know I said that 1.5 point in Bright Angel Trail is a great option, but if I was going to hike it in, the Bright Angel Trail, you're in a box canyon, so the views, yeah, you got great views, but when you're on South Kaibab Trail, I recommend if you're just going to do a hike, quick hike, I would hike down the Aah Point, check it out. It's wide open. You're seeing views the whole time. And I would even venture to say Cedar Point. Cedar Point's 1.5 miles down. The stairs get obnoxious when you're coming back up. So if you like to have a stair climber, go down the Cedar Ridge. They got the vault bathroom there. There's a little break area, no shade, no water. But you turn around there and you come back up. You're in the views out to Aah Point, to Cedar Point, is really, really breathtaking, and it's wide open. You're not in a box canyon. You're seeing views east, west, north, all around you, and it is a great hike. One of the things I do is I bring kids down to Aah Point and back certain parts of the year when I do work around the Grand Canyon. I'm a shuttle driver, and that's one of my best spots to go. You can hike down, back, 1.5, 2 hours, depending on your skill level. But I recommend Aah Point for every novice hiker there is. It's really not even a mile. It's 0.9 mile to Aah Point, and it's a great turnaround spot coming right back up. It's great. It's a good hike. Really gets your feet wet if you really wanted to venture down further into the canyon. Further than Cedar Ridge is so go down to them spots. Go to Cedar Ridge. Go to Aah Point. Go to the 1.5 mile rest house, and come back up and see how you feel. If you're feeling great, take a break that day, and then the next day do a big hike. If you're looking to do 5, 6, 7, 8 miles. But remember, if you go down to the river, no matter what, you're talking that's 15 miles minimum down and out. It is a feat, and I don't recommend it to anybody. I just don't think it's worth it. I think you go to the backcountry office, you hike down South Kaibab Trail early in the morning, you get a campsite at Bright Angel pre-registered, you have your permit, then you just hike up that corkscrew first thing in the morning to get yourself nothing to eat, and then you go to Supai Garden. You have another campsite there. You set up camp. You take a good hike out to Plateau Point, look over the edge. When you turn around and look from Plateau Point and you look up and you see the Altovar and Lookout Studios, Cobra the studios, you're like, holy moly. And the view's just spectacular. And then you just go right through Supai Garden. There is a spring that goes right through there. It flows all year round. It is cold water, no matter what time of the year it is. And after a good day of hiking, you stick your feet in the water right there. It's going to cool you down really nice on a hot day. Stay a night over there. Enjoy the night. Check out the stars. And then in the morning, pack up. You got 4.5 miles left of your hike and you're out of the canyon. I know it sounds simple, but I guarantee you by the second day, third day, you're hiking out of that canyon, your calves are burning. But it's a great hike, and an ice cream at the fountain or a beer at the Altovar bar is going to be the best ice cream, best beer you ever had.
Yeah, when you come out, absolutely. So we definitely keep driving it home. A lot of people don't realize how dangerous this canyon is. The elevation hikes, how dry the desert is, that intense Arizona sunshine that only gets more intense as you go. There's just so many elements that work against you. And if you are not used to hiking in these kind of elements, it's just so many things together. You can hike in the desert, but you're not used to climbing mountains. You can hike mountains, but you're not used to the heat. Desert. Yeah, the heat, the high desert, the thinner oxygen. There's just so many factors to keep in mind. Of course, there are people who the world record for what we call a rim to rim to rim. It's something crazy, like just short of 6 hours. And this gentleman hiked from Kaibab Trailhead all the way down to Phantom Ranch, up the north rim of the canyon, and then turned around and did the entire thing again in less than 6 hours. It's like 42 miles. It's absolutely mind-blowing that he was able to do it. Of course, there's the extremes and everything, but if you are not familiar with the canyon, we recommend trying these small little hikes and see how you feel. I have a weird sensation whenever I hike down into the canyon for whatever reason. My legs get really, really shaky. I'm fine as long as I keep moving, but as soon as I stop, my legs are trembling. I've got to sit down, I've got to eat, and then I get up and start going again and I'm okay. When I hike up an elevation like Grandview, I don't have that sensation. So everybody's body's different. Everybody's bodies handle the blood to oxygen exchange when you change elevation a little bit differently. So we really strongly, if you are not used to this environment, try doing some small hikes. Like James said, that 1.5 mile house, Cedar Ridge, and come back out, see how you feel. Then the next day, if you wake up feeling great, then do the next big hike. All right. So then off to our next spot. So after Kaibab, heading out to the east, is kind of a little secret spot. They've got a little tiny note of it on the Grand Canyon hiking map. And I'm sure if you've done any research outside of us, you've probably seen some mention of Shoshone Point. Shoshone. Google knows where to find it. Also on our website, we're going to have it pinned. So between mile marker 244 and 245. So
heading out the Desert
View Drive. Yep. So you pass the Kaibab Trailhead, Aah Point. You're continuing heading out east. About a 1/4 mile after mile marker 244, you're going to see a dirt parking lot on your left-hand side. Park there. Then you're going to see a gate on the northeast side of this parking lot, and it's blocking a dirt road. This is the road that the Park Service uses to go maintain the spot. So you walk actually that road. It's the trail to get out there. I think it's just over a mile to get you to Shoshone Point. When you arrive, you're going to have a vault toilet. You're going to have
charcoal grills.
Yep. Picnic tables, ramadas, as I like to call it, my Tucson tongue, shaded area, covered picnic tables. All of this is hanging out on the edge of the canyon. They don't talk about it because this is where they do a lot of the weddings. So it's beautiful. It's a local's favorite because people don't know about it. So you get the opportunity to have the canyon all to yourself. And this is one of these hikes at the canyon that we think is an okay spot to bring the dogs. Edge of cliffs makes me a little bit nervous because you have to have the dog on the leash. I would not take the dog off the leash, but if you feel comfortable, your dog's well behaved enough, this is a great spot because usually you'll have the space all to yourself. If you got a pack mule like James is for me, bring in that bag of charcoal, bring some food, pay attention to fire restrictions because sometimes you can't do that, especially in the summer months. But this is a great spot to have a lunch. You feel like you have the canyon all to yourself. Me and James were talking earlier. He was saying that if he had only one day to spend at the Grand Canyon, he would spend the whole day at Shoshone Point.
And it's really about, if I was coming to the Grand Canyon, say I was in Vegas for a conference or Phoenix for a conference, and I'm like, I really wanted to see the Grand Canyon. Well, it takes you from Vegas or Phoenix, takes you about 4 hours to drive to the Grand Canyon. So you really only got a couple hours, and then you got to drive back. And that's your 8-10 hours of your day. Where if somebody would have told me about Shoshone Point, I could drive there, have a parking area, hike a mile out, and come to a magnificent overlook. The first time I brought my son to the Grand Canyon, that is where we went. I would drive from Vegas, Phoenix, wherever. I'd hike out there. I'd have a picnic. And I would hang out and enjoy the canyon for however long I had. And then I'd hike back to my car and get the heck out of the Grand Canyon. If I just had a few hours at the Grand Canyon, I'm not a big crowd person. And I really hate when people are literally pushing you because they want a better view than you're having.
Or their pictures.
Or trying to get pictures. And that's the way it was the first time I went to the Grand Canyon. So just keep that in mind. So Shoshone Point, in my opinion, is really good, and it's pretty close to the entrance. After you pay your fee, you could probably be at Shoshone Point in 10 minutes to the parking lot. So that's why I like that spot, and I like the views from that spot. I like to sit there and just take it all in. That's my perspective of it, and it's a nice, easy walk, even in a hot day.
Yeah.
It's in the Ponderosa Pine, so you're literally shaded the whole time you're walking out there. So even in a hot summer day, it doesn't feel as hot. If you've ever been to Arizona, in the direct sun and dry heat, feels extremely hot, but any kind of shade, as soon as you get in that shade, it just doesn't feel as hot. So that's my take on Shoshone Point. I love that spot.
So after Shoshone Point, again, we're traveling to the east. We talked a little bit about Grandview Point. There was a hotel in this spot, and there was a mine. So there were miners that developed this area, the Last Chance Mine. There's all kinds of information there at the viewpoint. But this is the head of the Grandview trailhead. Now, like Hermits Trail, this is not a park maintained trail. Last I heard, our snows last winter, the snow melt caused a lot of landslides on this trail. So I've heard it's washed out in some areas. It's not impossible to traverse. I just heard that it's really difficult. Like there's some climbing involved. So you definitely want to be mindful. 3 miles down the trail takes you into Horseshoe Mesa, where the mine is located. From what I understand, when the mine closed, the miners had no idea that they weren't going to work the next day. So when it was quitting time, all of their tools were just left where they finished working, and they went home. And then the next day, found out they were all getting laid off, or that the mine was closing. So all of the tools are just left behind. So it's kind of a neat, almost apocalyptic scene from the early 1900s, seeing all of these old tools left behind. But then we've also recently learned about the Cave of the Domes, and I'm going to have James talk about that a little bit. It's a little more difficult to get to, but he's been talking to a gentleman who spent a lot of time there. So he can give you a little bit about it, and if you're adventurous, maybe you can find it.
Grandview Trail is a very, very difficult trail. And when you get down the Horseshoe Mesa, and there is a sign that tells you about the Cave of the Domes, and it is a very small opening. And when you get down into the opening, you don't think there's a cave there, but you climb down a ladder. And then when you get down in there, you need headgear or some kind of lighting because it's pitch black. It opens up to like a big cathedral. So it's literally, after you climb down this ladder, it's like 10 feet 12 feet, and it's a huge cave that you can sleep inside. And people do sleep inside there. And then you have to climb back out, and then it's 5 miles down. So it's a little further than the Horseshoe Mesa where the mine was. But it's another spot you can look up, and you can get information on that hike. And there's a book when you first go in. So you sign the book saying, hey, I've been to the Cave of the Domes. And you sign your name in, you get to go in, and you with some headgear. It's just a cool spot. It's kind of difficult to find it. It's kind of as the wind blows, the trail blows away, basically. But you can find it. Most people that find it their first time actually go down with a guide. And the guides have been there so many times that it's really easy for them to bring you there. After you do it once, you'll always be able to find it. But another cool spot, and you can check out the mines down in Horseshoe Mesa. So that is all open to the public. And just remember, Grandview Trail is not maintained by the National Park. There's not going to be a bunch of rangers down there. So just be aware anytime you're hiking in the canyon.
Always give your itinerary to somebody. Talk to backcountry offices. We'll keep driving that point home. It's really important for your safety and for the peace of mind of your loved ones. You can make it out.
Yeah, Grandview is another great spot. I like Grandview. When you look to the east, you see the Colorado snaking right down. It's a really good view of the Colorado River. And I still have a picture from a winter day that we had went there, and the clouds were lifting snow caps, and in the river, it looks majestic, and we'll post that on our website.
Yeah.
So other than that, that's Grandview Point. It's a must stop. It's a great spot for sunset and sunrise. So keep that in mind. Shoshone Point, if you don't mind hiking out in a little bit of the dark, I recommend Shoshone Point for sunset. And it's a private sunset, and it is wonderful out there. But you do need headgear to get back to your car.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So we're going to continue heading east back to Lippin Point. Now, this trailhead can be easy to miss if you don't know where to look. So when you first pull into Lippin Point, before you make the left-hand turn to get into the parking lot, the trailhead's going to be right there on your right-hand side. This is Tanner Trail. And from what I've heard, this is the most difficult trail on the south rim of the Grand Canyon National Park. And James has kind of done the dig deep research, so I'm going to let him kind of go into it.
Tanner Trail is another trail that you need to talk to Park Services about. You need to go to the backcountry office. You're going to be able to get a backcountry permit for Tanner Trail, but you're going to have to give some information about your hiking level. The Tanner Trail is the most difficult trail to hike in and around the Grand Canyon. It is demanding trail. So you would leave Lippin Point on Tanner Trail, 9 miles to Tanner Beach, which you can camp there, and then you would have to hike back out that same 9 miles. So one of the things about Tanner Trail, why it's most difficult and demanding, and some of the areas of the trail, like Grandview Trail, because it's not a maintained trail from Park Service, it is very narrow. And some of the narrow spots on this trail actually make you tilt like you're going over the edge. So you can imagine 40 pounds on your back. You're on a trail that's literally 2 feet wide, and now it's tilting you to a 100-foot drop in some spots. It is a very nerve-wracking trail to hike, but after you get down on the beach, you're going to enjoy a nice sandy beach. There is a fire pit down there. You can gather wood. Again, certain times of the year, you can have a fire down there. They close off fires often in and around the Grand Canyon, even on the top. Tanner Trail is one of those trails. You get on the beach, you're right on the Colorado River. It is very swift river. There is some pockets of pools that you can swim in to cool off, but you cannot and you should not get in the main part of that river and think you're going to swim across 300 feet and be able to swim back to shore, because you're going to start and you're going to end 500 feet down the river, and all your gear is going to be back down at Tanner Beach. So just keep that in mind. It is a very swift river. Tanner Trail, they're not going to give everybody a permit to go down the Tanner Trail. You are going to have to demonstrate, and probably have some backpacking experience in the Grand Canyon. They just don't give permits out to go down Tanner Trail without showing some experience. You're going to be pushing yourself, and you really have to be equipped. You really want to talk to the backcountry office and the rangers down there. Them rangers, most of them guys have hiked it. They're going to be able to give you the newest information on these trails. But the most difficult trail, the most demanding trail in the park system on the South Rim is Tanner Trail. So Liquid Point is another awesome view just to go for sunset. It's wide open there, and there's a bunch of spots that you can just hang around there. It is beautiful. If you like the sun, it's a good spot to hang out there in the afternoon, meditate, just take it all in. So I know that's my wife's favorite spot, and it's a great view spot.
Especially monsoon season. We'll post this on our website as well. But last summer, I think it was, we went there during monsoon season, and we actually had the intention. We were going up to the park to hike Grandview Trail. And a note about the weather here, it's unpredictable. And so monsoon season, the storms are pop-up storms. It might say there's a 20% chance of rain while you're standing in a torrential downpour with thunder and lightning around you. So you always want to keep your eyes on the skies when you're here. Consistently recheck your weather. The weather changes here a lot. So definitely while you're packing for your trip, while you're on your way, and once you arrive, consistently check the weather. But we had head up to Grandview Point to hike down in. We were going to try to get to the mine and come back out. And a monsoon storm came in, torrential downpour. It dropped so much rain so fast, there was no way that trail was going to be safe to hike. So we figured while we're up there, check out some viewpoints. So we headed out to my favorite spot, Lippin Point. And looking back towards the west, seeing that storm system inside the canyon, doing its thing, it was just absolutely magical. It was so beautiful watching these storms in the canyon. A lot of people get disappointed because they hear that there's no rain in Arizona, and then they get caught in a storm while they're here, and they're disappointed because they're on vacation. Nobody wants to play in the rain on vacation, but remember, moisture in the desert's a beautiful and rare occurrence. And if you're lucky enough to experience it, really make the most of it and appreciate the beauty of what it causes for the desert here. There's a lot of beautiful things to be found in even some of the most negative situations. So is there anything else you wanted to add, my dear, about the viewpoints of the Grand Canyon, hiking?
No, visit the Grand Canyon. It's a spectacular place. Again, if you want any advice, you have any questions that we didn't touch upon enough, and if you're confused by anything, just shoot us an email and we will personally respond to your email and give you some updated information. And we do know this area fairly well, so we'd be able to help you out in any situation that you might have a question on. Even
if we don't know the answer, whether it's the Grand Canyon or anything else, we will do the research to help you get that information. So please don't hesitate. No matter how silly you think the question is, please don't hesitate to ask us.
Always looking for feedback for Kerouacs Cruising. We're trying to find great spots for you, for us, our dogs, really just trying to live a joyful, happy life. Thanks for tuning in to Kerouacs Cruising.
We're thrilled to have you with us.
We had a blast recording this episode and hope you enjoyed our adventures as much as we enjoyed sharing them.
For more amazing pictures and stories, visit our website and blog at kerouacscruising.com.
And join the conversation on Facebook at Kerouacs Cruising or email us at join@kerouacscruising.com.
We'd love to hear your thoughts and suggestions.
If you enjoyed this episode, please consider liking, subscribing, and leaving us a review.
Your support helps us reach more listeners and allows us to continue sharing our travel experiences with you.
It's a generous favor that means the world to us.
Thank you so much for listening to Kerouacs Cruising.
Until next time, happy travels.